Baghdad, 25th October 2004. It's a year since Saddam Hussein has been overthrown. And Australian diggers protecting our diplomats in the strife-torn Iraqi capital are heading outside the wire.
Very much a routine patrol. We're going to drop a couple of guys off, pick a few guys up, and then head out through Route Irish down to Camp Victory.
Lieutenant Garth Callender is the commander of a security detachment made up of 2 armoured vehicles. He's exposed in the turret of the second. And within minutes will be the target of a roadside bomb.
We passed a series of parked cars on the side of the road. One of them had bombs in the back and it was remotely detonated, and as my vehicle passed it, it was triggered.
A lot of dust. I can't assess Victor Charlie. Where's Victor Charlie?
The immediate aftermath of the horrendous blast is filmed by Australian snipers nearby.
That was a fucking big one, man.
What do you remember?
Not anything of the explosion, to be honest. I remember coming to, not being able to see, not being able to breathe.
What's your first thought?
Well, I initially thought that I'd been shot by a sniper. I thought somebody had shot me in the head.
Trooper Matt Millhouse is inside the first armoured vehicle. He's knocked out by the blast, but regains consciousness and rushes to help Garth, who is seriously wounded.
I had puncture wounds in my face, second-degree burns of my face and neck. I had a piece of fragmentation go in the back of the side of my neck, which nicked the artery there. So very quickly I had a almost grapefruit-sized hematoma in the side of my neck.
Garth is flown to Germany for urgent surgery. His wife Crystal rushes to be by his side, but hardly recognises him.
I arrived and I walked down the corridor and there was a guy, but I didn't know that it was him. So he was so badly injured that his head was the size of a bear, really. So, yeah, it was quite confronting, I guess, to see him like that.
Garth will make a full recovery. The scars on his face, the only physical reminders of that blast. Matt Millhouse received barely a scratch that day.
Yeah, we're in a bad place and bad things could happen.
This is Matt 2 years after the blast in a Defence Department video.
But as long as you're confident and you work with good people, that's what gets you through, because you're willing to follow them anywhere because you know they've got your back.
This is Matt today.
Are you okay?
35 years old, a husband to Therese and a father to Eleanor.
You just sit right there with your cushion.
And stricken with an incurable injury that was hidden for years after the blast.
Right.
Now sit down.
You're right, though. Got your bottom down.
His brain is quite literally dying.
Hey Matt, can you remember the bomb going off when Garth got badly injured?
Every second, I'm going to do it every second. Whenever every second, it's a big story. Every second.
Do you remember getting knocked unconscious?
Yes.
Matt is the face of the military's latest epidemic, traumatic brain injury, known as TBI. A devastating injury that has been invisible until now.
Charging. 4, 3, 2, 1.
Scientists are making a shocking discovery that soldiers who've survived an IED blast, supposedly unscathed, are sometimes the ones who suffer the most lethal injuries later in life. Are you in any doubt that a severe concussion can cause dementia?
No, I'm in no doubt about that.
Neurosurgeon Dr. David Hovder is a world expert on traumatic brain injury.
This is an experimental study of concussion.
In America, 250,000 soldiers have now been diagnosed with TBIs from combat. That's an amazing figure.
It's a low figure.
You reckon it's a lot higher?
Oh, it's tremendously higher, because a lot of them go unreported.
So that's a mild concussion, as we call it. The scans of human brains reveal the frightening truth.
This is a normal UCLA undergraduate student.
So that's what a brain should look like.
Right.
This scan shows what a healthy, normal brain looks like. And this is a scan of a brain with mild concussion.
After a concussion, it looks like this. It's running right now at about 50% of normal.
That's a really dramatic change, isn't it?
And this individual is talking, walking, has very little deficits that you could really see. But the brain is compromised. That's why this is not.
But Dr. Hovder says what's even more dramatic is the similarity between the concussed brain scan and that of a coma patient. So when you were shown the scans originally, you thought this one here was the coma patient?
Yeah, I didn't believe this. And I said, we're not publishing this until we do this a number of times and until somebody else does it as well.
And in fact, this one here is the coma patient, but there's almost no difference between the two of them.
Nope, there's no difference between the two of them.
What do you believe caused Matt's dementia?
I believe that he was affected by a traumatic brain injury caused by the explosion, because I can't see any other reason for it. It's the only one that makes sense.
Doctors at first thought Matt was suffering psychological injuries, battle trauma, post-traumatic stress disorder and depression. But it was his wife, Therese, who picked up that Matt's symptoms were very different.
I just said, look, you're not moving right, there's something wrong with your speech. I think we need to get someone else to look at you, because we honestly thought he might have had a stroke or something.
Did he agree?
Yes, he knew that there was something not right and he wanted to work out what it was.
At just 33, Matt was diagnosed with incurable early onset dementia.
Just make sure you chew. It's very hot.
2 years on, his condition has deteriorated so much he's now in a nursing home. His needs are so acute he can only visit his family once every few weeks.
Keep moving them. I will do yours, because yours is a bit messy and you do mine.
Is your daughter old enough to understand now what the prognosis is?
No, not. She just knows that Daddy is very sick, and I think she can see that now more so than when she was younger.
Please tell me if this is too distressing for you to talk about, but what are Matt's long-term prospects?
We know they're not good, and he knows, that it's changing every day, and it's very scary to think about, especially with Eleanor. It's very scary.
Where's Victor Charlie?
One blast, two very different injuries.
What does that mean? Right, I couldn't guess that.
For Garth and Crystal, that roadside bomb is today a distant echo. For Therese, Matt's insidious disease means the shockwaves from that blast keep ricocheting in devastating ways.
Why did it happen to Matt, though? He's the one that copped this dreadful degenerative brain disease?
I still don't understand why that happened. I don't know why, people exposed to the same thing react differently and their bodies react differently.
That was a fucking big one, man.
When a roadside bomb explodes in downtown Baghdad in October 2004, Lieutenant Garth Callender and Trooper Matt Milhouse are both knocked unconscious.
What do you remember?
Not anything of the explosion, to be honest.
When both men come to, Garth discovers his terrible injuries. Matt, with barely a scratch, rushes to Garth's help. A decade on, Garth has made a full recovery.
Hey.
But Matt, today just 35 years old,
You saw it yesterday.
has early onset dementia, the direct result of traumatic brain injury from the blast. This is the military's new silent epidemic, devastating lives and families.
There's no treatment for traumatic brain injury, period.
Which is terrible news for any family, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
There's only one way to measure the impact that a bomb blast has on the human brain. You've got to blow things up. But today we can't get close to the bomb we're going to set off, even though it's 1/90th the size of the massive explosion that very nearly killed Matt and Garth. So today we're enlisting the help of these two crash test dummies, who they call Iron Man. And today the Iron Men are going to take a hit for science.
Tell me when you're ready.
I'm joined today by Garth and by Dr. Charlie Needham, a blast physicist who's made a career of studying bombs.
The particular problem that we worry about is the internal injuries that are caused by blast when there's no external sign of someone having been injured.
And what are you finding? What's striking you most with the research that you're doing?
The fact that fairly low-level exposure, repeated exposures, can cause severe brain trauma.
Charging.
Yep, let's go.
Let's do it. Okay, Don. 3, 2, 1, fire. The impact on the head is significant. Even with the skull shuddering by a few millimetres, the pressure wave violently wobbles the brain.
I was just looking at the pressure traces, and the closer dummy is at the high end of injury and could very easily cause brain injury.
Remember, the size of this controlled explosion is just a fraction of the massive blast that hit Matt and Garth in Baghdad.
The example that we saw today, the blast wave would fill that room in about 4 to 5 milliseconds.
And the human reaction comes more than 20 times that much.
That's right. You wouldn't know that it had gone off and you'd been hit 3 or 4 times by the reflected shocks by that time.
Garth, on an order of magnitude, your bomb, the one you were exposed to in your IED, was massively larger.
Significantly larger, that's right.
For Garth, still struggling to understand why he's okay and his mate Matt Milhouse is suffering from a devastating disease, today's test only underlines his good fortune.
It's been acknowledged on quite a lot of levels that I was extremely lucky not to have long-term serious injuries.
And do you think you are now fully recovered?
Yeah, absolutely, yep. I've got a few little quirks. And it took me a while to understand this, but you can't be this close to a bomb blast and not have a few quirks. Hey Matt, how are you? Good to see you.
For Garth, His good health is even more remarkable when he sees his mate Matt and notices how he's slipping further away each day.
Good to see you.
It is good to see
Yeah,
you.
it's good to see you too. Yeah.
But like the heroic fighter he is, Matt Millhouse wants everyone to know there might be hundreds of Aussie diggers who end up like him.
I was so scared. And I did what I needed to do.
Because so many have been exposed to multiple bomb blasts in recent wars.
It's been acknowledged that you've got a brain injury.
Yeah.
Does that sort of explain things for you?
But there's no treatment, there's no cure.
I know.
No treatment, no cure. So no treatment, no cure.
No cure for Matt. But Dr. Hovda has found that the worst damage can be repaired after a blast injury if the brain is not subjected to further impacts.
So it can heal itself?
Yes.
And if you don't give it time to rest, what happens?
Cells in the brain die.
And in the worst case scenario?
You have dementia, Alzheimer's disease, Parkinson's disease.
Do you find that it's often a relief for the families of these men and women when they're sat down and they're told that what's causing these symptoms, and sometimes the death of a soldier, is a physical injury?
I think it has saved many lives. And the reason I say that so strongly is because head injury doesn't happen to one person. It happens to the entire family.
The Australian military now recognises the dangers of exposure to multiple blasts and ensures diggers are given the time to fully recover from concussion injuries before returning to the field.
I don't know, it was about 3 weeks into the trip and we drove up to exchange some of the vehicles.
Yes.
For Matt, the Department of Veterans Affairs has acknowledged that his traumatic brain injury, his dementia, was caused by his military service. And the care that he's getting is exceptional.
Over Iraq situated halfway between Moses and Chalifah.
But there's no escaping a devastating truth. That his family will never get back the man they once knew. I think when I was talking to Matt, one of the most poignant moments for me where he was most lucid is where he looked at me and he said, incurable, incurable. He knows it's incurable, doesn't he?
Yes, he does.
Does it worry you that we might be looking at the same epidemic of disease here in Australia as people slowly get sick?
It does, and it worries me that we're not prepared for that and that we're not ready for that, and people don't know enough about it to help.
Hello, I'm Liz Hayes. Thanks for watching. To keep up with the latest from 60 Minutes Australia, make sure you subscribe to our channel. You can also download the 9 Now app for full episodes and other exclusive 60 Minutes content.